ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਗਿਆਨ ਧਿਆਨ ਕਿਛ ਕਰਮ ਨਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਸਾਰ ਨਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਸਾਜੀ ਨਵਾਜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀਓ sitting in the company of Dhan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the greatest of all, Supreme King, the one who unites us to Vaheguru, to God. We are all very fortunate to be sitting in the company of Dhan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj Ji, especially within our lunchtime hours. We have been afforded this gift of being able to listen to the Katha, or the narration of Akal Purkh Vaheguru's greatness. Before I start, I would like everyone to share the Guru's Fateh. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So Satguru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj's Gurpurb is being celebrated in the school. We're very fortunate that Maharaj has done Tars. Tars is basically a Punjabi word which means that he has felt sorry for us. He has blessed us with this ability to be able to remember him in these minutes whilst we're doing Katha during the lunchtime. I can't think of many schools in the world where we have this opportunity to listen to the teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. There's two things in the house of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, and those two gifts are those two amazing gifts. One gift is called Katha and one gift is called Kirtan. These two gifts are amongst the many jewels that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj possesses and gives to his children, because we are all his children. Sabna ka maapyo aap hai, aape saar kare, which means he is everyone's mother and father, and he looks after and protects everyone accordingly. Over the next 4 days, I will attempt to, with the Guru Sahib's blessings, with your blessings, be able to explain the whole life of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj from start to finish. And we'll be touching upon episodes of where Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj went, what blessings they did on everyone. And in particular, I'll be looking at the power that Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji brought, who they were, why they came, and also what they did for the world. And I will be focusing on different sakhis or different stories and teachings of what Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj tells us. And I will also, with your blessings and Guru Sahib Ji's blessings, be talking about the role of women and how Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj lifted the status of women as well. Because in this day and age, every single individual here is born from a mother. And in our fast lives, sometimes we tend to forget who our not just physical parents are, but who our spiritual parents are. So if Guru Nanak Sahib Ji Maharaj is like a father, then his creative power or his ability to make and create and protect other people, that is like the mother, the qualities of God. When Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is very, very happy, then he gives us the ability to sit in Sangat like this. If he is very, very pleased with you, he will bring you to the Gurdwara. If he is very, very pleased. And I sometimes reflect this with some of the other colleagues and teachers, that whoever comes to this school, either as a member of staff or as a child, they are incredibly fortunate. Incredibly fortunate. Because in this life we might be Ranjit, Ranveer, Amrit and so forth, we might have our names. But the soul behind you, the soul inside of you, has been coming for many, many lifetimes. So when we present ourselves to Guru Sahib Ji, we don't present ourselves just in terms of the uniform or the students of Guru Nanak Academy. Guruji is also seeing who you are and how far you've come and how many lifetimes you've come through. And sometimes when Guruji sees you, he laughs and smiles and thinks, this is this person from this time. And when he really loves you, he will bring you forth and make you understand that as well. So Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, this year is a very important year because Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj came to a place called Raipur ki Talwandi, which is now in Pakistan. And Raipur ki Talwandi in the year 1469. And this year, starting from Friday, is the start of the 550th year of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj on this world. 550th year. Which means that for 550 years, at the time of Kaljug, this dark age, we have been given the support of God Himself. When a commander-in-chief or a general of an army sees that there is a problem in his lands or where he lives or where he rules, he will call all his officers in and say to the officers, I want you to go to that area and help the people there who are suffering. I want you to destroy evil from that area. And then that general will go to that area and resolve the task and come back with medals. They are rewarded medals by the commander-in-chief. Sometimes what happens is the difficulty in the area gets so bad and so difficult that the generals come back to the commander-in-chief and say, I can no longer achieve, I couldn't do what you wanted me to do. I couldn't save the people in that area. I couldn't resolve things. And then when everything comes to a head, it becomes so difficult to rule that area, then the commander-in-chief says, right, then I have to go and sort this out. And the commander-in-chief himself, the leader, the highest officer of the army, comes himself. And in the Sikh faith, we say these lines. Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj says, Gyan Dhyan Kich Karm Na Jana, Sar Na Jana Teri, Sabte Vadda Satguru Nanak, Jin Kal Rakhi Meri. Gyan means spiritual knowledge. Dhyan means the ability to sit and focus, i.e. concentrate. Gyan, Dhyan, Kich Karm Na Jana. Karam means actions. So the person is saying, I don't know anything about spiritual knowledge, I don't know anything about focusing or concentration. I don't know anything about what the right action is, what the wrong action is. Sarna jana teri, and I don't know how big you are, how great you are. But I know one thing. Sabte vadda Satguru Nanak jin kal rakhi meri. I know that the greatest thing and the most powerfulest thing is that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is the highest and greatest of all. Sabte vadda Satguru Nanak jin kal rakhi meri, who protects me and looks after me. So the first thing that we have to think about or get over in our minds is to have faith in Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj being the head of all and the greatest of all. For Sikhs, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj is considered to be God on earth. Guru Sahib says, Guru Granth Sahib Ji says, Aap Narayan Kalatar Jag Mein Parvaryo, which means God Himself has come in the form of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj on earth. So you might be thinking then, what about the other faiths? What about the people or the prophets of other religions then? For a Sikh, every prophet of every other religion is respect-worthy and satkarjo. And our respect is given to all faiths and all prophets. In fact, Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj makes reference to some of these avatars or incarnations in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj and the writings of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Siddhasam Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So what does it mean by Guru Nanak being Sabte Vadda Satguru Nanak Jin Kal Rakhi Meri? What does it mean that I recognize Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj to be the greatest of all, and he is the one who protects me and looks after me? Well, there's so many different instances from the life of Guru Nanak Dev Ji that tell us this or give us this understanding. Firstly, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj is like the Commander-in-Chief. He is the officer who's come when all his generals have been sent in this world. They did what they could, but the state of affairs in the world is so bad that the Commander-in-Chief had to come himself and resolve all the issues. So what was so bad about where we're living? Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj in Bani gave us some ideas about how bad it was. Firstly, Kal Dharam Pankh Kar Udariya Kood Amavas Sach Chandrama Disa Nahi Keh Chadaya Ho Pal Vipunni Hoi Adera Raho Na Koi. How bad was it? Kal Kati. Let's think about what Maharaj is trying to tell us. He says, in this dark age of Kaljug, actions of individuals are like a knife. Kati. Kal Kati Raje Ka Sai. What were actions that were so bad in this day and age of the people who live in here? In India, for example, there was a caste system. In that caste system, you had four main castes. You had at the top the Brahmin caste. Underneath that you had somebody called the Kshatriya caste. And then underneath that you had somebody called the Vaishnav caste. And you had people who were so-called untouchables, who were called the Shudra, or the Shudras. And each of these four castes had an occupation. The Brahmins were known to remember God and teach everyone else about God, to do charity and to practice charity themselves. And the third thing was to do puja or worship and get other people to do worship as well. That was what the good task was. But the problem is, over time, they started to look down upon the other castes. It got to such a bad extent that if a Shudra happened to be walking past when a Brahmin was eating, the Brahmin would stop eating because he felt that the food had got spoiled just by the Shudra walking past. It was that bad. The Kshatriyas were army or soldiers who used to fight, the Vaishnavas were farmers, and the Shudras were made to do all the menial tasks. So they were considered to be almost like slaves of the rest of the community. To see a Shudra walk by, a Brahmin would have to go and have a bath or a shnan or a shower at that time. Just because they felt that seeing that person was making them defiled or turn bad as an individual. We're talking about Kalakati, what the reasons were for Guru Nanak Dev Ji coming into this world. The first reason was there was too much prejudice, there was too much stereotyping. Shudras were treated unequally. That was a big problem. Raje Kasai. The next line of what the problem was, why Guru Nanak Dev Ji had to come into this world, the commander-in-chief, is because the kings, Raje Kasai, instead of doing good tasks, looking after their kingdoms, what they began doing was to kill and murder their own subjects. They made sure that people who worked for them weren't paid. They made sure they tortured their kingdom. They became almost like butchers. Raje Kasai. So, that was another thing that was wrong. The leaders or the rulers of the country at that time, his name was Lodi, the Lodi dynasty. Sikandar Lodi was the man in charge. They were doing great repressive acts. They were doing those things that were putting people down. They weren't looking after the people in their kingdoms. They were destroying their morale. I'll give you an example of destroying the morale. For example, you weren't allowed to sing. You weren't allowed to wear a dastar or a crown on your head. Some people were not allowed to ride on horses because they were so-called low caste. If people walked past the low caste like we mentioned, people were going to have a shower, thinking that they've got defiled by that person walking past. And the Brahmins had created such a way of thinking that they'd gone to the very construct of even making a simple meal. So for example, they said they used to make a line about 10 meters away from where they prepared the food, and no one was allowed to cross that line. Especially if you were a so-called Shudra or a low caste. So society was split up into different regions or different hierarchical ways of living. And everything was about worshipping the highest person or the Brahmins there. There were good Brahmins as well, but there were people who were taking advantage of others. Another area where people were struggling, or another aspect of society which is struggling, was the females. Females were prevented from remembering God. We weren't allowed to go to the masjids, we weren't allowed to go to the mandirs to remember God at that time. They were considered to be the bottom of society. And actually, even the people, the scriptures of different faiths at that time, the people who wrote books at that time, the people who were the most educated people, people like Manu, who wrote loads of different texts, he wrote that the most unfaithful, if you want a definition of who is unfaithful, or if you want a definition of what is like a rubbish tip, or if you want a definition of what is a well, then look at woman or female. They used so many derogatory terms about females. So the kings of the country were not looking after the people, their kingdom. Women and people of low caste were treated as the lowest of the low. People weren't remembering God. The people who were priests, the people who were religious people, were actually committing a lot of the crimes. That's why the whole universe was crying out. Ho paal vi kunni hoi. Our search is going on and we vyakal. Vyakal means that we're completely delirious, calling out for a savior, for someone to come and save us from this time, from the society at that time, what was going on. There's no path to be seen. People actually felt at that time there was no path to walk out and get liberated, get free. You know what? The amount of freedom that we have now, people yearned for this at that time. So at that time, somebody heard the ardas. God himself heard the ardas. Suni pukar datar prabh. Guru Nanak jag mahe bithaya. A very important person called Bhai Kuljit Singh said that God himself heard the ardas of the world and he decided to come to save everyone. Guru Nanak Dev Ji sab te vadda Satguru Nanak jin kal rakhi meri. When they came to the house of Mata Tripta Ji and Mehta Kalyan Das Ji, that was the mother and father's name, it is said that a few minutes or few moments before Guru Nanak Dev Ji's coming into this world, the whole room where Guru Nanak Dev Ji was based, where the pregnant Mata Tripta Kaur Ji was about to give birth, it all lit up. The maid who had come to deliver Guru Nanak Dev Ji as a baby, she was shocked and she recorded saying that not only there was a massive light, but there were these ethereal beings appeared, like these kind of auras of individuals, and they were all singing the praise of God, and they almost threw what looked like little sparks of flowers onto the place where Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj was said to have come. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj entered the world, there was no crying like a baby normally cries. There was a laugh, there was a laughter, there was a smile. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj entered this world, and to Dai Dalta, who was the maid, she didn't see Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj deliver like a normal big baby from the womb of the mother. She saw Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj be placed into a throne of flowers. This is her actual thoughts and feelings and perceptions at that time. And she saw those ethereal beings who came and appeared in front of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, throwing these sparks of flowers towards Guru Nanak Dev Ji. They all bowed in front of this baby, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji chuckled when they bowed. And they stood in front of this baby and sang praises of God. Mata Tripta Ji saw this scene as well, and she was completely flabbergasted, she was completely shocked, because she couldn't imagine that she'd given birth to what looked like God himself. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Both Dai Dalta, the maid, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's mother at that time. It is said that the pain of birth is equivalent to 60,000 scorpions stinging at once. That is what it is said to amount to. This is scholars who have written in scriptures. But at that moment when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj came to this world, they say that Mata Tripta Ji didn't feel any pain at all. And at that moment when she saw that she had given birth almost to this ethereal being, this amazing baby who was smiling and chuckling, she took it in her mind that she had actually given birth to God. And at that moment, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj knew that if her mother, his mother, would continue with that thought that she'd been given birth of God, or she'd given birth to God, she would never able to do her function of a mother, which is to provide sustenance and provide that security to the child, how the normal mother would in the rest of the world. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji uttered a cry from that throne, and the throne disappeared. Those angelic beings who were showering flowers on Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they disappeared. Everything disappeared. And what was left was Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj in the hands of Mata Tripta Ji. And with that, the whole thought of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj even coming in that way to this world disappeared in the minds of Mata Tripta Ji as well, in order for her to do her function. We talked about the Brahmins. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj went on many travels called Udasyan. And over the next few days, up until Thursday, I will be going through where Maharaj went and who he went to. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj had a sister who was 5 years older than him, whose name was Bibi Nanaki Ji. As Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj got older, he was so amazing that the people, the individuals around him, automatically felt pleasure and comfort just by sitting with him. Imagine a child in a school where the kids were dying to see him every day, and no one questioned Guru Nanak Dev Ji ever. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj would tell the children, come around, come and sit with me, and he would make them remember God. In fact, as a young kid, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj would sit for hours with his eyes closed and concentrating on God. And it is said in our history that the very first person to recognize that he was the image of God on this earth, the Commander-in-Chief come to take away everyone's pains and suffering, was a Sikh by the name of Bibi Nanaki Ji, his sister. There's so many stories of their love between Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Bibi Nanaki Ji. And I'm going to fast forward to the time when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, roughly at the age of 28, 26, 27, 28, after they got married to Mata Salakni Ji, and they even had 2 children, Baba Sri Chand Ji and Baba Lakshmi Das Ji. The Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj disappeared into the water, the river Vein, and didn't return for 3 days. In that time, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's soul went in front of his primal form, God, and they conversed. And the conversation that they had was, now is the time for you to spread the message of God everywhere. And he gave him a very special message. What was that message? That message is the first thing you see in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Ek Oankar to Nanak Hosi Be Sach. The very first verse of Japji Sahib. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj in that time, for 3 days, had disappeared, the whole of the congregation who had realized that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj was giving so much peace to everyone and showing so much love, there was virtually a miracle every single day. When Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj did a miracle, it wasn't ever for their own praise. It was solely to take away someone's ego and to help an individual get closer to God. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, when the grass was back to the full levels in the fields, when somebody had complained that all the cattle of Guru Nanak Dev Ji had eaten the grass, but when they came to check, the grass was the normal size, or when the cobra was seen shadowing Guru Nanak Dev Ji's head at a younger age, all these different instances of little miracles, or when Guru Nanak Dev Ji taught his own teachers, he showed them what was the truth. And they all accepted that this person had come specifically to remind people of God and that God is one. When that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj disappeared for 3 days, all the people were suffering out of that separation of his darshan, what we call darshan, his vision. And the wife, the sister of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Bibi Nanaki Ji, she was married to somebody called Bhai Jairam Ji. Bhai Jairam Ji had got into depression because he was missing Guru Nanak Dev Ji so much, and all they had found was Guru Nanak Dev Ji's clothes on the side of the river bank. But there was one person from the whole congregation who wasn't switched off and who hadn't lost faith. Bibi Nanaki Ji, the sister of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, spent 3 days without sleeping. And at night she would sit in meditation, her mind totally focused on Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And in the day she would give confidence to her husband and say, don't worry, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, my brother, has come to save the world and he will reappear after a few days, I know it. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, when he returned after 3 days, it was Bibi Nanaki Ji who had the first vision of him, that he had arrived, and she was nowhere near the river. She was sitting focused, her attentions on Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's feet, even though he was her younger brother, because she had that faith in him. And what happened? When she found out, when somebody came to tell her that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had come, she ran towards the river way and saw Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj had emerged from the river. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's message at that time was, there is one God, Ek Oankar, and His name is true. And the first action of reciting the name of God with a blessing, with a physical gift from God, took place at that time. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji instructed his sister, who was the only one with that much faith, he didn't lose hope, that he was the greatest of all. He instructed her to make prasad or deg, which we have now. And Bibi Nanaki Ji was the first Sikh to prepare deg and give it out to the congregation at that time, or prasad, what we call it, to the congregation at that time. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj blessed us all with these moments. We are so fortunate. And you will realize this because when you sit in Katha, Katha means the place of comfort. When you sit in the comfort of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, your minds will be also taken. You will feel peaceful inside. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji is gifts are being showered upon us. We're spending 30 minutes of time with Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj every lunchtime. I'll pick up the rest of the Sakhiyan. Today's message was Sabate Vada Satguru Nanak Jinkal Rakhi Meri. I recognize Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj to be the greatest of all, and he is the one who protects me. We'll spend the last 2 minutes just singing the praise of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and we'll continue this. You can join in with myself in praising Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. Tan Guru Nanak, 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 Tan Guru Nanak. In reciting Katha of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's life, I've made countless mistakes. In reciting Gurbani, which itself is perfect, I've shown many imperfections. Please forgive my mistakes. Let us do ardas that Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj blesses us with the faith of Bibi Nanaki Ji and the comfort of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj's Sikhi. Please forgive our mistakes. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Vaheguru Ji Satnam Ji. Ek Oankar Satnam Karta Purakh Nirbhau Nirvair Akal Murth Ajuni Saibam Gur Prasad Jap Adi Sach Jugad Sach Hai Bhi Sach Nanak Musi Bhi Sach Gyan Dhyan Kich Karm Na Jana Sar Na Jana Teri Sab Te Vada Satgur Nanak Jin Kal Rakhi Meri Tere Kavan Kavan Gun Kah Kah Gava Tu Sahib Guni Nidana Tumari Mahma Barnana Sako Tu Thakur Uch Bhagavana Tumari Mahma Barnana Sako Tu Thakur Uch Bhagavana. Sitting in the company of Dhan Dhan Satguru Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, King of Kings, Emperor of all emperors, within whose court you are sitting, which is the highest court of all. We are blessed to be able to spend some time within our lunch breaks to be able to remember Dhan Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, the founder of the Sikh faith, the prophet of all, the one whose message is for the whole of mankind, the whole of the universe. Sadhguru Maharaj Ji blessed us with the ability to be able to sit and remember them on the 550th celebrations of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj came the year 1469 at a place called Raipoe Ki Talwandi. Raipoe was an individual who owned quite a lot of land in the area of North Pakistan. When he passed away, he gave all his land to his son, whose name was Rai Balar. You might have heard the name Rai Balar. He was a person who witnessed a lot of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's childhood miracles, including the time when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj was resting under a tree, and as the sun moved direction over a few hours, the light fell on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's face. And then a huge cobra snake came and shaded Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj's face from the sun. When Rai Balar saw that, because Rai Balar, because he had so much land in that area, he had employed the father of Guru Nanak Dev Ji as the person who was bringing in the money from those lands. So when people used to farm the land, the people who used to bring in the money, they were called patwaris. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji's father, Mehta Kalyan Das Ji, they were a patwari, and Bhai Mardana Ji, Bhai Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj was expected to follow suit and follow the footprints of his father, Mehta Kalyan Das Ji. Yesterday, we talked about how Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj is seen as God themselves in the Sikh faith. When a commander-in-chief sends his generals in to a country or to a place where there's a lot of issues, a lot of problems, the generals, when they can't diffuse the problem or can't sort out the problem, they then go back to the commander-in-chief and say, we've had enough, we can't do anything, can you come and do it? Can you come and help us? Then the commander-in-chief himself, the whole army has to go and sort out the problem, resolve the issues. So similarly, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is seen as the commander-in-chief. Sabate Vada Sat Guru Nanak, Jin Kal Rakhi Piri. And all the other prophets of other faiths respect Guru Nanak Dev Ji in that manner. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj earned the respect of Hindus and Muslims. So Rai Balad Ji, even though their family was from a Hindu faith in the back, in their descendants, like Rai Boy was a Hindu person, but they had converted to Islam because there were areas of that country which were being invaded by people called the Lodi dynasty. And the Emperor Lodi, Ibrahim Lodi, had basically created a time of fear in people's hearts. If you were living in that country at that time, we wouldn't probably be able to sit like this in a company, sitting, remembering God, or Guru Nanak Dev Ji. If you were a woman, you weren't allowed to go to the mandirs, you weren't allowed to go to the masjids to pray. You were considered to be the lowest of society. If you were a low caste person, for example, a Shudra, we mentioned yesterday the caste system, which the Brahmins were at the top, then you had the warriors, the Kshatriya, then you had the farmers, and then you had the Shudras who were considered to be the menial people. They did all the menial tasks, the slave work of everyone else. They were disregarded upon. Even if a Brahmin, for example, would walk past the area where Shudra lived, you had to go and have a shower or bath straight away afterwards. Or if the shadow, even the shadow of a Shudra fell on a plate of food that the Brahmin was about to eat, then the Brahmins wouldn't eat that food. There was so much discrimination that people couldn't worship God. If you were a Hindu person and you worshipped idols, statues of Vishnu, Bhagavan Ji, or Sri Ramchandra Ji, or Sita, Rama Ji, or Lakshman Ji, you did it in fear. You hid yourself in worshipping God. That's what the state of affairs were at that time. So Guru Sahib tells us about the time, and he says, Kal Kati Raje Ka Sai, that in the age of darkness, in the age of Kaljug, Kati, truth and justice has gone out the window. There was injustice and lying everywhere. And it was like a knife cutting through society. Kal Kati, Kati kande knife. Raje Ka Sai. And the person who was holding the knife were the Raje, the people who were ruling the country. Because instead of looking after their kingdom, they were assassinating or killing their own subjects, repressing them, not letting them do things that they needed to do. Even for a Shudra to sit on a horse and wear the star was considered a sin. They weren't allowed to do it. So, Mara says, Kal Kati Raje Ka Sai. And faith had almost grown wings and flown off. Dharam Pankh Kar Udareya. Faith, the people of faith, so the Brahmins, who were the highest Hindu faith, they were showing or pretending to be people of faith, but they hadn't actually achieved God or knew anything about God. They made people pay for worship. And they were in allegiance with the Raja of that time as well. The kings told them, you bring the money to us and we'll give you luxuries. So the Brahmins had constricted a web of putting everyone else down in society. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj came in this world to readdress that balance. to show them what bakand or falsity they were doing. So Maharaj says that Dharam or faith grew wings and flew off. Dharm pankh kar udreya, Kud Amavas. Every 15 days in the sky, when you look at night, the moon will come to two stages. What happens is, on Purnamashi, on a full moon, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj came to this world, the full moon, after 15 days, it turns into no moon. So the full moon starts to go less. Darkness, Vadiya, so you call those 15 days Vadi. Vadi, Pehli, Vadi, Duj, Vadi, Teej, like that. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, until 15. And then what happens? The moon disappears. When the moon disappears, it's called Masya or Amavas. And Guru Sahib Ji used that example. Guru Sahib tells us that the state of affairs at that time were Kud Amavas. That there was no light, there was no moonlight. The moonlight is known to give two things. A, it shows us the path at night in the midst of the darkness. And fruit and all the vegetables and fruit that we have, our scriptures tell us that the ras or the taste of that fruit, it ripens with the rays of the moon. It grows with the sunlight, and the ras or the taste of it is filled with the rays of the moon. It makes people feel calm. So calmness was nowhere to be seen. Kud Amavas. And Kud means corruption. So there was loads of corrupt people living their lives. Sachit Chandrama, and the moon of truth was nowhere to be seen. Disa nahi keh chadya. It was nowhere to be seen. People couldn't find truth anywhere. They were searching, looking for that person who could unite them with God, or be truthful, or stand up to this dynasty of people, stand up to these emperors who were butchers, stand up to the irreligious people, people who were showing that they were a certain faith, but they weren't actually practicing it. Were the Muslims actually Mom Dil? Musulman Mom Dil Hove. Musulman is someone who's got a heart of wax. Were Muslims practicing compassion at that time? These are the questions that people were putting through in their ardasa to God. And when God heard those ardasa, they sent themselves a form of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj to this world. Aap Narayan Kalatar Jag Mein Parvariyo, Guru Sahib says. The aim, the focus of God themselves come to this world. Yesterday we heard how Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj was married to Mata Slakshmi Ji. They had two children, Baba Sri Chand Ji, the respected Baba Lakshmi Das Ji. And then at the age of 28 roughly, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj left home, walked into the river Vain, disappeared for 3 years, came back with Mool Mantra from God, from Vaheguru, and gave that Mool Mantra to everyone else. When everyone else gave up hope that Guruji wasn't going to return, there was one lady or one Sikh of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, his sister, Bibi Nanki Ji, who spent all night in the remembrance of God, in the remembrance of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and even gave faith to her own husband Jairam Ji and said to him, "Don't worry, he will return. He will come back, I've got faith." And after 3 days, Maharaj came back. They instructed Bibi Nanki Ji to make deg, and deg was given out to the Sangat with the blessings of Mool Mantra as well. And it's still followed to this day in the form of Panch Pyare. When you take Amrit, deg is given out, distributed, as well as the name of permission given out to the Sangat. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj didn't return home after that. They told their family that they were given a mission by Gurpurb Vaheguru, which is themselves, but out of nimarta, out of humility, they detached themselves and say, "I am his humble servant." And they travelled extensively. These travels were called Udasiyan. Some knowledgeable people say there were 4, some actually agree that there was 6 Udasiyan, all in different directions. Babaji, Guru Nanak Dev Ji went in all directions to save people. He went to the people who were full of corruption, the kings. For example, he went to Garu Bacha, the emperor Garu. This person was so determined to collect wealth that in that culture where he lived, where people were put in the graves, they had 2 coins put on their eyes. And that emperor dug up the graves to steal those coins from those dead bodies. He was that despotic, he was that repressive as a ruler that he wanted to accumulate wealth. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj traveled to visit him. When he came to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj taught him that all the wealth that he had accumulated was worthless. And how? When an Avdari Purushan, a person who is full of God's work or God's power, they have abilities to make even a person ask the right question at the right time. So a thought came in Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when Maharaj went to see the Garu Bacha, the thought came in his head, the king's head, that I'm going to ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji a question. And the question was this: Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj had a needle in his hand. And Garu Bacha asked the person, what's this, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, what is this needle? Why have you got this needle? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji's reply to him was that I'm using this needle in this life, that I'm hopeful of taking it with me when I die. It will come with me to the next life. And the Garu Bacha turned around and said, what? That's a joke. How can you take anything with you when you die? How can you take that needle with you when you die? How will it even go with you? And that's all Guru Nanak Dev Ji wanted him to ask. Because as soon as he'd asked that question, Guru Nanak Dev Ji asked Garu a question and said, what about the money that you accumulate from dead bodies? What about the money that you take from people by repressing them, by hurting them, making them be slaves for you? Are you going to accumulate that and take that with you as well when you die? And that's it. It hit the heart where it needed to hit. That emperor fell in Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's feet and promised and asked first, how do I resolve it then? How do I resolve this issue? Use your wealth to do good of others. Give it back to them. In your palaces, in the day, in the night, in the morning and in the evening, remember God. Get the people, your subjects, to come to your palace and remember God together. Similarly, the Sakhi, Guru Nanak Dev Ji travels to see Pumya Chor, the thief called Pumya. And this is an amazing story because Pumya had a habit that he'd been stuck in for many, many years. The habit was that he couldn't stop stealing. And in order to break his habit, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj said to Pumya Chor, if you can't give up stealing, then at least follow these 4 instructions. Maharaj, tell me, what can I do? Carry on stealing. But when you steal, steal from the rich. Second, whoever you steal from, don't do loon harami. I.e., if he's your employer, don't eat food from his house. Third, if you see a poor person being hurt by a ruler, you stand up for it. Question it. And fourth, if ever somebody asks you why you are standing up for it, speak the truth. Challenge them. Sat Bachan Maharaj. Whole of our Sikhi, the whole of Sikhi, if you want to be a Sikh, is focused on 1 or 2 words. Sat Bachan. Whatever you say, Maharaj, I'll do it. No questions, just do. Pumya says, Sat Bachan Maharaj. He went to do his chori, the
next day because he couldn't give up the habit. Maharaj knew he couldn't give it up. Pumia Chor went to some rich person's house to steal. And when he went into the house, he took all the money from whatever it was, the safes that they had at that time, the jewelry, packed his bags, and as he was about to go, he sees a meal on the table, some mitha, and he thinks, let me just have that. As he's about to go to eat it, he remembers Guru Nanak Dev Ji's second rule, ki loon haram nahi karna, and he leaves it there. Doesn't eat it. He's followed the first bhajan, second bhajan, now a third. The next day, the person who was the governor's house that he'd looted, he called all the poor people, he rounded them all up, because again, society was at a status that anyone who'd done any crime, get the lowest persons first, get the greedy people, get the poor first. Grabbed all the poor people together. He started to hit them with his gods. And when Pumia Chor found out, he went to investigate. Because what was the third bhajan? The third bhajan was, don't stand for any greed being battered in any way. And he stood up and he said, stop this. You're not allowed to do this. Why are you hurting these innocent people? And Pumia was asked by the governor, what have you got to do with this? You carry on doing what you need to do. Somebody's done a massive chori, somebody's looted the house of the governor, my house, and I can get out the answer from these people if I want. And Pumia said, but they're innocent. How do you know they're innocent? And the fourth bhajan came through. Because I'm your thief. What do you mean you're my thief? He had brought the bundle with him, and he put the bundle in front of the governor and said, my Guru instructed me to speak the truth, even though I had done a galti and this habit that I've got. My Guru had told me that is something that I shouldn't do, but I couldn't give it up. So he gave me these 4 instructions, and I'm placing them before you. Give the money back to this. Give it back. I've given it back. I'll follow the instructions. And the governor was so impressed. ਉਹਦੇ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ humility ਆ ਗਈ, what we call nimrata ਆ ਗਈ. He got humble as well. And he said, I want to meet this Guru as well, that you follow the instructions of, who helped you get through this. And not only did he get that money, he gave it to, distributed to the poor people. And he was impressed with the honesty of Pumia. And Pumia, from that day onwards, gave up his chori, became a saint. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj went to those individuals, and if they were doing something wrong, he transformed them. The city is a place called Agra, where you may know the place called Taj Mahal is built. It was built by a person called Shah Jahan. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj visited Agra before it was built. And in Agra there was a woman called Mai Jassi Ji. Now Mai Jassi was somebody who always had a yearning in her. You remember, women were oppressed at this time. Women weren't allowed to worship in mandirs and so forth. So they hid themselves doing it. It didn't say that they didn't devote themselves, they did, but they hid themselves. They were scared. And what she used to worship, she had a murti, a statue of Sri Ramchandra Ji, called Rama. Sita Ji, just slightly behind him, and slightly behind her was Lakshman Ji, the brother of Sri Ramchandra Ji. And she worshipped these murtis. Every single day, she would sit in front of the murtiya and say, please give me a darshan. I want to see you in front of me, right in front of me. Not in a murti form. I want you to come alive, talk to me, give me some sign that you exist. I'm devoted to you. And over the years, 10, 15 years, she spent doing this. she would met so many different people who would see her actions and would try to replace her devotion. She used to play an instrument called the veena. The veena looks like a sitar, but it's got kind of two blob ends on it inside. It's an instrument that is played in where Hazur Sahib area is. Some people would have seen a picture of a lady goddess called Saraswati, and she's got the instrument in her hands as well. She used to play this veena and sing songs in front of the murtiyan. Please give me darshan. I'm dying for a darshan. And now and then, people would take advantage of her innocent worship. So people would come and say, oh, your murtis, there's something wrong with your murti. Come to me because my murti speaks. So she went to visit these people. They would get a little smoke in front of the murti, and then a human would speak up instead of the murti to try and give her darshan. But she saw through it. She knew that it was just false. She continued with all murti puja with a yearning to meet something that was going to guide her and tell her the right path. In the end, she met a saint from another city called Ravan Ram. And this person was very humble, and he said, the reason why you ain't getting darshan is because the murti is too small. You got to move on, I'll get you a bigger one. So he bought a big, huge statue of Ram, Sri Ramchandraji, and replaced the smaller one. He said, worship this now. And she was amazed by the devotion, but she still didn't get what she wanted. She wanted that internal yearning from God. When somebody's devotion is being sent back again and again and again and again, a person can get what we call cynical. They forget even the feeling of being full of love for God. And she became cynical. Her kirtan stopped. Even the worship of the murti began to stop. And in her heart, there was about 1% left where she was yearning for that trueness, that oneness. And even when a person's feeling like that, they begin to say things out of ego. Oh, God doesn't exist, doesn't matter anymore. I'm not interested either. She had a servant called Tabli who, while she was devoted, Jassiji, my Jassiji, Tabli ji was the opposite. She was cynical. And she didn't believe anything what her friend, what her Master Rani would do. She was her servant. But when the time came, Jassi had turned cynical, and Tabli, the servant, had become full of devotion. Sometimes it happens. And what happens? Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj comes to Agra, sits outside the tree under a mango tree. And Tabli heard and went to see Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. She sees even the Muslim fakirs, the saints, bowing down to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And she sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji's forehead just blaze like light coming from him. She's impressed by his humble words and the instruction that remember God is in everything and everywhere around us. He's in the murti, he's in the air, he's in the ground, he's omnipresent, he's everywhere. She was so impressed by that finding that she went to call my Jassiji. And my Jassiji was reluctant at first. But slowly, she began to develop an interest because she went to the grocer. And the grocer was a person who was pious himself. He was a saint, and he talked about this amazing person who had come outside the city of Agra, who was sitting under a tree, a mango tree, and he was giving blessings to everyone. And my Jassiji decided to go. She went along. And when she went to see, when she saw Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, she instantly saw the aura of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. And Maharaj looked at her. She came and she placed her forehead in front of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. Maharaj put his hand on her head and said these words, which a lot of you might recognize from a Bani called Shabd Hazare. Tilang Mahalla Pehla, E Anadiye Manada Gai Kare, O proud bachi, proud girl, why are you so proud of your thought, your mindset? Give it up. Because this Vaheguru or the God, the husband Lord that you are yearning for, is in everything and everyone, is omnipresent. The presence of God is everywhere, in everything. She asked a couple of questions, still with her head on the floor. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj answered every single question and placed her on the path of remembering God, which is what we call omnipresent in everything around us. She was so taken back, and her questions, all of her heart blossomed up again. All the questions answered that she wanted. She invited Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj to her house. Maharaj stayed there for 10 days at Agra, and the whole city used to come and worship Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj through a Gurpurb Vaheguru through Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj at the home of my Jasiji. Let's do ardas that just as we have doubts or worries or concerns in our minds about remembering God or seeing God in front of us, let's do ardas that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj in this next couple of days opens our minds and replaces that Sharada and faith once again. Tomorrow at the same time, the time is at 1 o'clock to 1:30. We started at 10 past today. Please be on time, and we will got 2 more days of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's life story. In saying, in narrating the greatness of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, I made countless mistakes. Please forgive my mistakes. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Onkar Satnam Karta Purkh Nirbhau Nirvair Akal Murਤ Ajuni Saibham Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jugad Sach Hai Bhi Sach Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach Tere Kavan Kavan Gun Kah Kawa Tu Sahib Guni Nidana Tumari Mehma Baran Na Sako Tu Thakur Uch Bhagavana Tumari Mehma Baran Na Sako Tu Thakur Uch Bhagavana जो हमरी बिद होती मेरे सतगुरा साबिद तुम हर जानो आपे हम रुलते फिरते कोई बात ना पूछता गुर सतगुर संग कीड़े हम थापे धन धन गुरु नानक जन केरा जित मिलिया चूकै सब सोग संतापे जित मिलिया चूकै सब सोग संतापे धन धन सतगुरु श्री गुरु नानक देव साहिब जी महाराज धन धन सतगुरु श्री गुरु गोबिंद सिंह साहिब जी महाराज Tan Tan Sadguru, King of Kings, Emperor of all Emperors, the true path, Akal Purkh Vaheguru on this earth, Tan Tan Sadguru, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, in whose company we are all seen, and we are very, very fortunate to be able to spend some time thinking about Tan Tan Sadguru, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj's praises, describing, if at all possible, making attempts to describe the greatness of Sache Pasha Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. It is very difficult to do Katha of something that is very difficult to describe and fathom, because Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj has no limits. We
have got limits to what we can think and what we can do as individuals. But Akal Purkh Vaheguru Aap Narayan Kalatar Jag Meh Parvaryo. For us as Sikhs, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj is the form of God on earth. Their teachings were spread amongst the 10 Gurus, culminating in Dhan Satguru Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. The last 2 days we've been talking about the life of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, and we have covered the coming of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj in this world, the reasons why Maharaj Guru Nanak Dev Ji came, because the treachery of people who empower the kings, the Raje, and also the fact that society was ridden with discrimination against the poor. Women were looked down upon and disregarded by society, not given the opportunity that they needed to prosper for spiritually. In India at that time, the emperors were heads of what we call draconian laws, where each law was stipulated to make people feel bad about their identity and to submit to the powers to be. Things like one wasn't allowed to sing the praises of God, one wasn't allowed to mount horses, wasn't allowed to wear the stars. If you were a young lady, young girl, and you had married someone, before that person could have a physical relationship with their husband, the lady was told to spend a night with the governors of the areas. That's the kind of oppression that was going on at that time. But then Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj came to this world, and with them they destroyed the whole thought sense of the caste system. Being in a Sikh school and having the sense or having the thought that we are of a certain background cannot sit well with being a Sikh. If we're Sikh, or the majority of our school is of a Sikh background, we have many other people from different faiths, very respect-worthy faiths. It is our job to respect each other, love each other and get on with each other in order to get the best out of our education. If we can't see Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj in the person sitting next to you, or a person sitting next to you in a classroom, then you can't see God anywhere. Jai jai pekho teh hajur dur gatoh na jai. Wherever I look, I see Vaheguru. He's always near me. And any of the saints in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj have written, where we bow down to Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we bow down to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, we bow down also to Bhagt Farid Ji. We also bow down to Bhakt Naam Dev Ji. We bow down to many people of different faiths, all who got to God by the method of reciting the name of God, what we call Bhakti. So yesterday, Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, we heard how they had gone into the river Main for 3 days, and on the return, they had decided to start this mission of reciting the name of God and telling others to remember God. Ik Oankar, one creator God, one sustainer God who looks after us, who protects us, and one God who has the capability of destroying everything as well. That is the message within the Uda sign of Ik Oankar. There's 3 lines in the Uda. The top line stands for the creator. The middle line of the Uda letter stands for the sustainer, and the bottom line that goes to the top of the Uda stands for the destroyer, the destroying capability of God. He does that with his God, with his energy. Therefore the correct pronunciation of Ik Oankar is Ik Oankar. Sometimes we hear people say Ikankar, Ikamkar. The correct pronunciation is Ik Oankar. It creates a vibration in your mind when you say it properly. The second line of Mool Mantra is Satnam, His name is true, or God's name is true. And then the rest of the qualities of God fall in line as well. Katha, Purkh, He protects everyone. Nirpao, He's not scared of anyone. Nirvair, He's got no enmity, He doesn't hate anyone. Agal Murad, He is the timeless Lord. Ajuni, He doesn't come into birth or death cycle like we humans do. Sarpam, He is self-present. How is He realized? Guru Prasad, with the kirpa, with the blessings of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And how do we get the blessings? Jap, by reciting His name. The name of God that has been true from the start of time, during time has been created. After we leave this world, it will be here, and after this universe is destroyed and brought back to zero again, God will still be there. And that was the opening incantation, that was the opening Mool Mantra. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji went everywhere, 6 Udasiyan all across the world, spreading the message of oneness. Helping people to get out their depressive states, giving courage to those individuals who had no voice. There were social reformers as well. Guru Sahibs, wherever they went, they created cities. Wherever they went, Sangat began to accumulate after they left. Such was the presence of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. Bhai Gurdas Ji, a very important scholar, says, he says, wherever Jithe Baba Pair Tare, wherever Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj stepped, wherever he walked, Puja Asan Thapan Soya, which means that asthan, that place where Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj even sat or went, it became a place of worship. Puja Asan Thapan Soya. It became a place where people would get together, remember God, sing the praises of God, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj did it there as well. If Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj travelled in those years, in those days, without access to aeroplanes and stuff like that, sometimes in the blink of an eye, Guru Sahib could move from one place to another, because such was their power, because they're the creator. Sometimes they would be in 2 places at once, such was their power. And he took Bhai Mardana Ji from a Muslim background, used to be called Marjana. His mother used to refer to him as Marjana, because he had 6 siblings before him, all had passed away, one after the other. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji once called for Bhai Mardana Ji, he heard his mother shout out, Marjana, somebody's here to see you. And Guru Sahib said, why do you call him Marjana for? She explained that his siblings before him had passed away and he's going to die one day, I feel. So I just called him Marjana. Marjana means he is going to die. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj smiled, he said, this is their humility. They are the creator themselves and they know that they're going to be accompanied by Balaji, by Mardana Ji all around the world, spreading the name of God. But they say, he should serve saints, and you should serve saints. Any sadhus that come to you, serve them. And the other thing he said, keep his hair. If you keep his gears, and you serve saints, he will be Mardana. Mardana means he will never die. He will be immortal, and he is truly immortal. So whenever you think of Guru Nanak Dev, you always think of Bhai Mardana Ji. They went everywhere together. The job of an Avadari Purush, or a person who is very spiritual, who is one with God, who is the form of God, is very eloquently put by the 5th Guru. Guru Sahib says, Daya karnam dukh harnam ucharnam naam kirtanah Dyal purkh bhagwanah nanak liptana maya. Daya karnam. They are compassionate, they are very kind. That's the first quality of a person who is a man or a woman of God. They are karman. In all aspects, their
main thought at all times is to do good actions for other people. That's what they live for. Daya karna. And then dukh harna. They take away people's pain and suffering away. That's the second task of a spiritual or a Dari Purush. Daya karna, dukh harna. And then how do they do that? What do they do next to that individual? Ucharnam naam kirtana. They recite the name of God themselves and they make others recite the name of God as well. They are Purkh Bhagavan. They are always the house of compassion. Purkh Bhagavan. Purkh means they protect others. And Bhagavan means they are the form of God. Nanak Liptana Maya. They're not interested in Maya. You might have heard this word before, Maya. Maya is of three things. The definition of Maya is three things. One version of it is called Jad, which is the money form. When you put money in front of people, we earn money. That's called Jad Maya. It makes you forget God sometimes. Chetan Maya is when you think of boyfriends, girlfriends, relationships and so forth. That is called Chetan Maya. Sometimes by doing that, we forget God and why we're really here. And then Agyan Maya is simply being ignorant about God, not knowing that He even exists. These three things, our own ignorance sometimes that we don't make the effort to remember God or think about Him, is sometimes the difference between us finding Him. It's very easy. All you have to do is you work, you come to school where you have access to Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj. During the day at some point, do some seva. Even if something is clean it again. Bring a little cloth with you, maybe clean the windows. Make Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj do Chaur Sahib of Guru Granth Sahib Ji after having a shower. Must have had a shower in the morning. Come on in your lunchtime, you have an hour lunchtime. You say half an hour, 40 minutes, have lunch. And then you have another 20 minutes to come up here maybe and just spend a few minutes doing Simran. It makes all the difference. All the stress of the day will disappear if you give your mind to Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. Because he'll take that pen. He watches everyone. He's watching. He's always here. He's present here at the moment. And he watches us and sees how much love and devotion we're showing to Guru Sahib Ji at all times. We're very fortunate. So fortunate. You will only realize when you leave this school and you've got careers, that's when you'll realize how fortunate you were to come every day to Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. But don't leave it that late. So, in the third Udasi, the third travels of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, we have a concurrent theme of how Guru Sahib lifted women. A woman by the name of Dodhi Rani. Dodo Rani is sitting, she's just bought, she's got a container full of food, and on top of the container she has got a little cloth that's tied it so that no flies or anything can go into it. And she's sitting at the edge of a river Ravi in India, in Punjab. As she's singing, she's mesmerized by some sound of singing. The sound of some music, an instrument playing. She can hear it. And she goes to investigate the sound, and she sees that there is a person playing a rabab, a one or two string instrument. It's by Mardana Ji. And she had, in that food, in that little container of food that she had bought for her husband was working in the fields. After she travelled over to see Bhai Mardana, she also has a glass of milk and some sugar, some mitha, tied into a bit of cloth as well. And she says to Bhai Mardana, because she's mesmerized by the sound, the music that he's playing, and she's mesmerized by it, and she says to him, "Where are you from?" And he replies, I'm from here, I'm from earth. He says, no, you're not from here, because the music that you're playing seems that it's coming from somewhere else. Even though you're not singing anything, I feel focused. And Bhai Mardana ji smiled, he said, it's my Guru's blessings. Who? Which Guru? And Bhai Mardana ji says, he'll be here soon. She sits down next to Bhai Mardana ji and she's hearing or taking the sounds of this instrument in. After some time, Guruji doesn't return. She says to Bhai Mardana ji, I have a wish in my heart. This milk that I've got is still warm. If you drink this milk, it will make me so happy. And Bhai Mardana ji says, wait for my Guru to come, he can have the milk first, because we haven't had nothing to eat for 3 days. But my master, I have to live in his hukum, in his will, and obey him, because he is the greatest of the great. And she said, if I wait any longer, this milk will get cold as well. And Bhai Mardana ji says to her, come tomorrow. So she returned back to her house. The next day, she took 2 glasses of milk. One for her husband and the food for him. She didn't tell him what was going on. And she quickly fed him whilst he was working. And then she travelled over towards Bhai Mardana ji, where he was sitting. And this time, she hears some amazing voices singing. And that voice has strung her straight away. When she closes her eyes and she's walking, she's got eyes closed and she feels an element of peace in her heart straight away. The words have pierced her heart. And she couldn't believe that she was hearing, she could even understand some of the words as well. And Dodo Rani, she goes over and she sees Bhai Mardana ji, the same Bhai Mardana ji playing the rabab. But at the same time, she sees this amazing being sitting next to Bhai Mardana ji, and his whole face is radiant, eyes closed, singing a beautiful song about God, a shabd about God. And she goes and sits next to Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. Inside of her is almost like a massive sun that's erupted, huge light inside of her heart. She's never felt such sukh in her life, never felt such peace in her life. And that feeling, that emotion brings tears to her eyes, but tears which are attached to happiness as well. And she has no way of describing how she's feeling. The music stops, Guru Sahib stops singing, the music stops. And she opens her eyes and she sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji smiling at her. She puts her head in the feet of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. When her head touched the feet of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, Maharaj said to her, Nihal ho bachi, be blessed my daughter. And he touches her head. That touch of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj makes something amazing happen inside of her. She started to recite the name of God, which she was hearing in the Shabad, Har. And that Har, that name of God, erupted inside of her. And without her even saying anything, she was reciting it automatically. And she put her head again in the feet of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. And then she spoke. She said, Maharaj, I don't know who you are, but whoever you are something amazing. I've never felt this sense of peace and happiness and contentment. Please, I've brought some dud for you. Please, can you drink this milk? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj smiled and he said, give it to Bhai Mardana. Mardana, you drink the dud. You drink the milk. You haven't eaten for 3 days. And Bhai Mardana Ji, being a true Sikh, he turned around and said, Maharaj Ji, I can only drink it if you have some. You drink it first. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj smiles and looks at Dodo Rani and says to her, you drink it, bachi, tusi piyo. And she was in so much anand, so much bliss, that she was almost swaying with the amount of bliss inside of her. And because she was swaying and because she was feeling so much bliss inside of her, what she was feeling like we call amrit inside of her, Guru Sahib said to her, "You don't want to drink this milk, do you?" And she smiled, and Maharaj said, "You're already tasting a unique amrit inside of you." Because Maharaj knows exactly what she's feeling inside. That's the quality of God, of Guru Sahib, what we call antarjami, the inner knower. And Dodho Rani ji smiled and she bowed down in front of Maharaj again. And the moment she bowed down again, Guru Sahib went into another Shabd and started singing another Shabd. Whilst he recited, it was almost as if she was being taken from one star to another, one illumination to another, and each illumination inside of her was bringing more radiance and more light as she was listening to the Shabd. And again, the name of God erupted inside of her. Every single pore of her body was reciting the name of God, and she wasn't even saying anything with her lips. She was absolutely taken aback by the darshan of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. And then, after a few moments of gathering that energy to speak again, when the Shabd stopped, she then pleaded, "Maharaj, please, Bentiya, Aap ji accept my humble offering of this milk." And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and Bhai Mardana ji drank the milk. The moment Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj drank the milk, put their lips to the cup, another sensation erupted inside of her. The eruption that there is no difference between God and me. The ego completely gone because she'd done seva of Guru Sahib Ji. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, she took permission and she went home. All day and all night she could not sleep. The Shabd kept vibrating inside of her and she couldn't explain where she was and what she was doing. Even her husband was shocked. He said, "I've never seen you in so much pleasure and Anand, I don't understand it." She didn't say a single word to her husband. The next day she made 2 cups of milk. Again she went to Bhai Mardana ji and Guru Nanak Dev Ji and she did Dudhi Seva again. The next day after that she did it 4 or 5 days, day after day after day. She kept taking the milk. And what she realized, the people from that area had begun to come and sit next to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and also listen to Guruji's teachings. And every single day that bliss would grow inside of her. Until some people realized what was going on. And they said to her husband, "Doda, your wife is taking milk for 2 people outside the village. Do you even know what's going on?" And he thought, she seems in a really blissful cycle. So he goes to investigate. The next day he goes quietly, cryptically, silently follows her. She takes the dud after feeding him. She takes the dud, 2 glasses of milk, and she's feeding this Avtari person. The moment he sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj as well, he's hiding behind a tree, like behind the areas of Guruji can't see him. Maharaj can see everything. Can't hide anything from Maharaj. And when he sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he feels that same sensation in his heart as well, that blissful. But he doesn't have the guts to go up to Guru Sahib Ji and say, "I'm the husband of Dodho Rani." 2 days went by like that. The 3rd day, Guru Nanak Dev Ji smiling when Dodho Rani Ji brings the milk. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, "Do you want to call your husband over as well? Because he's been hiding for 2 days. Tell him to come over, not to be scared." Now, Dodara, he comes, he bows down in front of Guruji, and Guruji says to him, he says, "You're a blessed individual. Not only do you have eyes, but you've got legs as well. You've got feet as well, that bring you to auspicious places." And Doda was taken aback. Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to him, and only if somebody's fortune is so great and Maharaj can see what seva an individual is going to do, that Maharaj will do this. Maharaj said to him these words, he said, "Ask for whatever you want. Jo mangya Thakur apne te soi deva." Ask for whatever you want. And he knew, because in Doda he had 2 wishes. One was that he never had a child, he wanted a child. The second wish was that he wanted wealth, he wanted to be rich. There were the two wishes he had. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, even before he could say anything, Maharaj said, some people ask for spiritual things and then they get the worldly things come automatically. But some people want the worldly things first and then they get the spiritual things. He read his mind completely. And Guruji said, if you can't think of anything now, come back tomorrow. And he went home with Dodo Rani with the same bliss. They're talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji and how amazing their aura is, their teachings are. And then at night he says to his wife, tomorrow Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, I can ask for whatever I want. I'm going to ask for a son, and I'm going to, or a child, I'm going to ask for some money, I'm going to ask for some wealth. And Dodo Rani said, no, don't ask that, ask for the spiritual thing, because that's the greatest thing you could ask for. He said, no, I'm going to ask for these things first, my way. He goes back the next day, and he bows down, he again takes the darshan of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj in, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj blesses him and says, I promise still stands, ask for what you want. First time he couldn't even say a single word. Second time he couldn't utter anything. Sometimes that happens in the presence of God, even your voice stops. You don't know what to say. Someone who's so high, so lofty. And then what happens? Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj says to him the third time, Mangala, ask for what you want. And Bhai Mardana Ji even says, ask for a spiritual thing. And he came out topsy-turvy. He said, Maharaj, if you're really pleased with me, then I want a son and I want some wealth. What's the point of having everything spiritual when you haven't got anything material? You need both things, don't you? And Maharaj laughed, he smiled so much. And he repeated what he said the day before. Some people will ask for material things first and then get the spiritual power. But some people, like Dodo Rani, only want the spiritual thing. But because of Dodo Rani and her seva, you will get the blessings as well. Look at that. In the day where women were even regarded with respect, they were never even allowed to worship in mandirs or masjids at that time by the rulers of those, the Brahmins, the people who were in charge of corrupt people. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is giving the blessings to a man through Dodo Rani, through her seva. Just a couple of days passed and what happened? His uncle, Doda's uncle, decided to become a sadhu and he left all his wealth to Doda within a couple of days. So the material wealth came just like that. He was so amazed that it happened so quickly that he came to Guru Nanak Dev Ji and bowed down. And this time he's the one who carried the milk. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji is laughing because he's saying, usually your wife brings the milk, you're bringing the milk today. And he said, Maharaj, you're the greatest. All I know is you're the greatest. Whatever happens now, I'm happy. And he bowed down in Maharaj's charan. And every single day they would attend together, husband and wife, do seva of Guru Sahib. We're talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji being a social reformer. This is how they transformed people's hearts. They made people feel bliss. And actually, you know, when you go away from the Sangha today, you will also feel that same bliss with Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, because you're sitting in his presence. That's why we go Sangat, to feel that bliss, to be lifted of all our dogs. One day Guru Nanak Dev Ji came back from a stroll and he sees Doda constructing a shed. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, what are you doing? And he said, well Maharaj, loads of people are coming here now. Some people come and listen to you, some people want to eat langar. I've decided to create this shed for you so that people are sheltered from the bad weather. It's going to be raining soon. And Maharaj smiled and said, only you would think of that seva, because you're concerned, you know the bliss that can be obtained from the Sangha, from the congregation. So, some beautiful, massive sheds, 2 massive sheds were constructed by Doda and his wife. They both did it together. So the Sangha could take the comfort of sitting under the shelter. Meanwhile, in that same area, the people who weren't happy with Guru Nanak Dev Ji being there, they complained to Garodi Mal. Gloria was the governor of the area. When he found out that all these people have suddenly turned to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, the priests, the Brahmins who were receiving the money from the people, who weren't uniting people to God, their business had gone down. The people who were benefiting from the poor, they saw the poor people actually becoming blissful and becoming happy within themselves, and they couldn't take that people were being happy. So they complained to Gloria and said to him, you need to sort Guru Nanak Dev Ji out, and he decided to arrest Guru Nanak Dev Ji. What happens? He gets on his horse to go and arrest Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj at this place. Just the horse has gone a few yards down and it throws him off. He breaks his leg, fractures the bone in his body. He goes back home after 2-3 weeks and he's thinking, I'm still going to go and get Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. He gets on the horse again another day after he's healed. This time, as he's going toward Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he gets blind, he can't see. And something odd is happening, because every time he goes towards the direction of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he's getting blind, but when he walks backwards, his eyesight is coming back. And as he's travelling back from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he's thinking, what's going on? He's confused. He meets Doda and Dodorani. And they tell him that you're being an imbecile. You're messing with a Gurpurb Bible. And the words they used were, you're trying to push your chest against the massive ocean, the waves of the ocean. The ocean's going to just push you back. The ocean being Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And as they spoke to him, test it for yourself. Go and walk to Guru Nanak Dev Ji in humbleness, in humility. Walk. And he discards the thought that he's going to arrest Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, and then he thinks, let me think straight. And when he walks in humility, he suddenly sees his eyesight improving. As he's getting closer to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, his eyesight is getting better and clearer. Then he sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and hears Guru Nanak Dev Ji's words. He falls in Maharaj's feet. Maharaj places his hand on his head, because he is full of forgiveness, compassion, and says to Gloria, one should come in humility at all times. That same Gloria transformed the shed into walls, and the city of Darbar Sahib was built. The same city where Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj spent his years, his final few years, telling the Sangat, guiding the Sangat. Guruji was a social reformer, and he reformed by transforming people's hearts. We should also learn from this Sakhi that when you do seva of Guru Sahib, you will also be blessed with that kind of love. Please forgive my mistakes. A couple of minutes just before you go to your lessons. Pulla Chokandi Khemaji, please forgive my mistakes in narrating Guru Sahibji's stories and Sakhis and teachings. Tomorrow will be the last day. We'll finish off with Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj's final Udasi in the final few moments. Because from Gurpurb Sahib Maharaj goes to Baghdad and all sorts of other countries, Tibet, China, Rome, the Vatican, Egypt, travelled everywhere and met all the religious people and guided them to the path of universal brotherhood or oneness with God. And it is from Gurpurb Sahib Maharaj to continue that mission. So tomorrow we'll finish off with the final day. Tomorrow evening we have the Diwan in the Gurdwara as well. So please try to attend with yourselves, your friends and families as well if you could. Please forgive our mistakes. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Vaheguru Ji Satnam Ji. Nanak Pad Pankaj Bandana, Pad Pankaj Bandana. Simro Angad Dukh Nikandana, Ramardas Hirday Nitya Tyavo, Hirday Nitya Tyavo. Guru Ramdas Manavo, Guru Arjan Vignan Ke Nasak, Vignan Ke
Sri Har Gobind Subh Smat Parkasak Sri Har Rai Namo Kar Jori Namo Kar Jori Sri Har Krishna Manai Gauri Teg Bahadur Param Kirpala Param Kirpala Sri Guru Gobind Singh Visala या मैं अमृत ज्ञान है मानक भगत बैराग श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब उदद बंदो कर अनुराग श्री गुरु शब्द कमाए जिन जीते पंच विकार तिन संतन को बंदना सिर धरन सिर चरणन पर धार एक अंकारा सतगुरु तेह प्रसाद सच होए वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह विघ्न विनाशन सोए वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह है विघ्न विनाशन सोए धन धन सतगुरु श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी महाराज King of Kings, Emperor of Emperors, Light of the 10 Gurus, the 11th Guru Nanak Sahib, Dhan Sadhguru Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, in whose presence we are sitting to spend some time thinking about Dhan Sadhguru Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, whose Pavan Prakash Purab or Illumination Purab day, when they come into this world, is being celebrated tomorrow by the whole Sikh faith and others, people of other faiths who have respect and love for Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj as well. It's exactly 550 years of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj being in this world and having brought the teachings of Naam Japna, Vand Ke Shakna and Kirt Karni. To recite the name of God, to share your earnings, to work hard and share your earnings. These teachings were given to us by Dhan Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. Guru Nanak Dev Ji always advocated a way of remembering God at all times, and he became the forerunner of what we call the Bhakti movement, where we focus our minds and attentions on the recital of the name of God in this day and age, which is the easiest path to remember God. Guru Sahib Ji, wherever they went, the last few days we've been understanding and hearing how Guru Sahib Ji travelled extensively through the Udasiyas. Some Vidwans say 4 main Udasiyas, some 5, some even say 6. The fact is, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj visited all types of countries, all over the place. They went to the main religious centres of every other faith to give guidance and give love and to explain the path of Gurmukha, Naam, Dan, Isnan. To recite the name of God, Dan, to practice charity and to practice purity of the body, we call Ishnan. So Guru Sahib Ji travelled extensively. Yesterday we heard how Guru Sahib Ji was also a social reformer. They created the city of Sri Darbar Sahib. And it's from this city that they travelled on their last Udasi to various parts of the world, meeting the most spiritual people. You could say there were 3 main types of people who Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj gave guidance to, who were religious leaders as such. You had the heads of the Hindu faith, the Brahmins. You had the head of the Islamic faith, the Ghazis, the people who taught the Quran, the Beads. And then you had also
people who followed extreme form of yoga called Hatha Yoga, who were called the Siddhs. The Siddhs were people who were living in mountains and away from society, sometimes in jungles. And they used to practice a form of yoga that would give them miraculous powers, supernatural powers. And because of those powers that they had, they began to misuse their powers. They would come down into society, and if somebody wasn't willing to give them food and money, they would then say, I'm going to put this power or this curse on you. Some even had abilities to change the shape of their bodies. Some could change into animals and so forth. They had very high spiritual capacities, and the people feared them as well. The whole of Japji Sahib, the first prayer of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, which is written by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the whole of Japji Sahib is a conversation with these Siddhs at different places. Either in the mountains or in the jungles, wherever they met, they had discourse, and they would ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji such tricky questions. And they would also show their powers off as well. So when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj finished their last Udasi, they returned back to Kartarpur Sahib, and at Kartarpur Sahib they took on the garb or the clothing of a householder. They began to do kirtan. They worked hard, they worked the fields hard, and they exhorted, or they told everyone else around them to also do that, to work hard and share their earnings. Guruji, whatever they said, would earn it themselves first before they told anyone else to do it. So Guruji would start farming at Sri Kartarpur Sahib. And what happens is, in the local area, there was a mela or a fair that would happen where all the Siddhs from neighboring areas, they would come and they would show their powers off in public. And what happened was, the fair would be taking place at a place called Ajal Batala. Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, when they give us an instruction to follow, as Sikhs, if we follow that instruction, then we can get his blessings. It's not just about matha taking to Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it's not just about calling ourselves Sikh and label. We have to try to follow the instructions. The best student is one who will take on what the teacher says, follow it, and work on it, put effort in. And then the teacher will look at that person and say, this person's they've earned some reward, they're going to achieve. Similarly, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is the embodiment of God on earth. So if they give us an instruction, if we follow it, we will also merge into God. That is the assumption. It's not even an assumption, it's the truth. So these next two sakhi that I'm going to tell you are all about following the order and listening to the instructions, because that's where the beauty lies. And then Guruji leaves this world at Achal Batala at Kartarpur Sahib, and we'll finish off with that today. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, in Kartarpur Sahib, there was a Sikh by the name of Ajita. Ajita used to be like what we call the security guard of the village. He would go around at night making sure everyone was protected and safe in the environment. But when he met Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj added another duty to him. And his duty was that his aim was to go around the village and make sure that no one missed Amrit Vela. Everyone got up at Amrit Vela. That was his duty. So he would call out loud and he would gather everyone to come to the Kartarpur Sahib Dharamsal. Dharamsal means the place of religious learning, similar to what Gurdwara is. It used to be called Dharamsal first. And Ajita was told by Guru Nanak Dev Ji that once you've done that, once you've called everyone in the morning to wake up, you then have to sit there yourself in the congregation and remember God and meditate. you have to do that as well. So Ajita was doing that task for many months and a few years, and because of that he received some special powers himself from Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He had certain abilities. So when this fair happened at Ajal Vatala, Guru Nanak Dev Ji saw that many people are being put into frustration, made to feel sad and be scared of these Siddhs because of their miraculous powers and their supernatural powers. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji this day decided to go to this Mela as well and challenge the actions of these Siddhs. Guru Nanak Dev Ji never need to speak or say anything, it's just his action and his presence there would sort things out, sort matters out very easily. But Guruji decided to take Ajita with him. So both Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji and Ajita go to Ajal Vatala, this Mela, where the Siddhs would come. It was actually the Mela of Shivratri. And what happened at that fair, the Siddhs came and they recognized Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj because they noticed that all the congregation of Ajal Vatala was sitting with him. They realized that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's presence had taken over everyone's minds and intentions. No one was interested in doing that harsh form of yoga. It was so difficult to do. And everyone seemed to get comfort from the words of Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. So what happened? They decided to start testing Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. One thing that we should never do is test Guru Nanak Ji or Kaur Vaheguru's hukum, his will. Sometimes we do that, we question it sometimes. Some people question in a loving way to get understanding, but some people question in a crafty way as to kind of like feel as if that God doesn't exist. And what happened? These Siddhs saw that there was somebody performing a play about Sri Krishna Ji. And in the middle of the play, they had a tray where donations were taken in from the Sanghas. And what they did, the Siddhs, they used their powers to make the tray invisible so it couldn't be found. And when the people who were doing the performance realized that their tray of money had disappeared, they came running to the Siddhs and they said, "Our tray has disappeared. Can you tell us where it is?" And the Siddhs, being crafty, they hid it themselves. They said, "Why don't you ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji where it is? He's supposed to be a true Guru. He knows everything. Why don't you ask him?" And when the people came, because it was their livelihood, they fell in Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's feet and asked, "Say, Maharaj, it's our livelihood, but our money's disappeared. The tray of money's gone. How are we going to live? How are we going to upkeep our families and so forth?" And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj said, "Don't worry, we'll show you where it is." And Maharaj made the tray appear again. When they saw the tray appear, the Siddhs got even more enraged. The people went away happy, they got their money, and the Siddhs now came to Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. They sat down in front of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, opposite to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and they said, "Our forefathers, the Siddhs before us told us that you have great powers yourself, great miraculous powers. We've seen it for ourselves now, that you have supernatural powers." And you know what Guru Nanak Dev Ji's reply was? Maharaj's reply was, "I have no superpowers. I have no supernatural powers. I just live in the will of God and I accept it. Because I love God, I think God loves me. And because of that reason, I can only say that it's God's actions that have made the tray appear. It's got nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me." It was their humility. Obviously, because Vaheguru is the power, is the whole battery pack of powers. And then what happens is Guru Nanak Sahib Ji is sitting there, and the Siddhs, when they realized that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, we can't win him in an argument, they decided to show their powers in a different way.
one or two of them turned into tigers. One or two of them turned into big serpents, pythons. And one or two of them turned into fireballs. And they tried to scare Guru Nanak Dev Ji and the congregation with their roop or with what they were doing. It's very important that when we're in the Sangat that we listen to Guru Sahib Ji. And in Maharaj's Sangat there was one person who would accompany Maharaj, who was the name of Ajita. We knew that he had already some spiritual powers anyway, that Guruji had blessed him because of his service and love for God. And then what happened? Guru Nanak Dev Ji called Ajita to him and said, say Satnam, take this stick and make a big circle around the whole congregation, and as you're pulling the stick, say Satnam Vaheguru as you're going across. So he goes, Satbhajan Maharaj. He took the stick and he went and made a huge circle around where Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj was and also where all the rest of the congregation was, because a lot of the people start getting scared from these powers of these siddhas. And what happened? At that Mela, the day before, the night before, there had been a massive storm. And in that storm, even some birds had fell from the skies dead. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj saw that the Siddhs couldn't come past that line. The congregation were also happy that these Siddhs, their effect or their powers couldn't touch them. And the Siddhs and everyone else realized that they had been defeated again. They then came back to their normal forms and they came to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and fell in Maharaj's feet. It was a false dawn. They pretended to be humble. And they asked for the permission to leave. The Siddhs did that, they were given permission and they left. What happened with Ajita, because he had been given that extra bit of supernatural powers or some sort of bakshish from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he couldn't take it. So what he did, he thought, let me show these Siddhs in my own way as well. There was a lake not far away. He went into the middle of the lake, walking, put a cloth on there and sat in the middle of the lake. And he also noticed on the way to the lake that some birds had died. He picked up the birds and said, fly. And they came back alive again and flew off. So on one side you had Ajita, who was a beloved Gursikh of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who had been blessed with all these blessings because he's following Guruji's instructions. But he can't control the powers that Guru Nanak Dev Ji has blessed him, or Vaheguru has blessed him. And then you've got Siddhs who are using or misusing their powers to scare the population and the people. When Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj saw that there's a bird flying, and it's the same birds that were dead the other day, they frowned and they said that Ajita has come out of his circle. Ajita has gone out of his permission as such. They weren't pleased with him. So what they did, when they saw Ajita coming towards him, they looked at him, and in the look, just a glance, they took away all his power, and they had also taken away the Siddh's power like the night before. In the congregation, in that evening, husband and wife had brought their little child. He was about 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. And that little child was brought to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. The father stood up and the mother stood up and they said, Maharaj, this child is alive because of you. And we've come to offer him in your service. You can have him. Keep him in your service. We want him to serve you. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj said to them, I've never brought this child alive. I'm not the one who brought this child alive. And then the father explained, Maharaj, but it is you. How? I don't understand. Can you explain to the congregation how this has happened? And the father turned around and said, my children 3 children before us had passed away. This 4th one was born, this child, and we had done ardas that if there's one person who can protect our child and look after him, we've never met you, but we had faith that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is a perfect Guru and you will be the one who will be able to look after him. We do that ardas every single day, and with the blessings of yourself, Maharaj, and your lotus feet, you have saved our child and he is now 12 years old. We call him Sanktiya. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji smiled. Sanktiya came, he was a very, very knowledgeable child, very spiritually aware child. He came and put his forehead in Guru Nanak Dev Ji's charan. And Maharaj patted him on his head and said, Sanktiya, is there something that you could do for me? And he said, Maharaj, Aako, give me agya, what do you want me to do? Guruji called for some wood and he told the 6 servants to put fire on the wood. And Maharaj told Sanktiya, I want you to go and sit in the middle of that fire. He was only 12 years old. He turned around and he said, Satvachan Maharaj. He was so humble and so focused on his teacher, Guru Sahib, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He went and sat in the middle of the fire. Everyone was shocked because they were thinking there was the only son of this couple and Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, what are they doing? But when he went and sat in the fire, not a single flame touched him. In the midst of a blazing fire, he sat for nearly an hour. Not a single flame touched him. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj was protecting and looking after him. They doused out the fire and Bhai Sanktiya Ji was called over, beckoned over by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He came and again, not a single burn on his body. He came to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, bowed in front of him, and Maharaj said, there is a very unique person, you're a very unique person, Sanktiya. I'm very happy with you. In sitting on that fire, I'm going to bless you with the highest spiritual levels. And Maharaj just looked in his eyes and blessed him with the knowledge of God. So all his ability, the bliss inside, everything, he saw God in every single thing, that wherever he looked he would see Vaheguru. And he was so blessed. Maharaj said to him, ask for something else as well. What else would you like? When a parent wants to give and they're really pleased with you, they give you loads, right? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, what else do you want? And then you know what he said? This is the true sense of what a Gursikh should be like. Put his hands together and he said, he's only a 12-year-old child, he said, Maharaji, yesterday the Siddhs and also by Ajita Ji, you took their powers away. Can you replace the powers? Can you give them back the powers that they need? Maybe they don't know how to use them, but can you also bless them with the understanding of using them for the right thing, for compassion? And Maharaj smiled so much, he embraced him and said, whatever you want has come true. And at that moment, the powers returned to Ajita and also the Siddhs as well. The Siddhs then came and they bowed their heads down in Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's feet. They said, Dhan is the Guru, great is such a Guru. And great are his Sikhs as well, who Guru Sahib blesses in this way. So, I guess the morale of everything is Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj has blessed us all greatly. We come to the school which is called Guru Nanak Academy, okay? But we should know a little bit about Guru Nanak Dev Ji and what the instructions are as well. We should try to follow them. We should spend as much time as possible remembering Vaheguru. The more you do now, this age, the more you do now, the more blessings you will receive later on in life. This is the right age to do it all in. When I say do, I mean recite the name of God, because that's all Maharaj Guru Nanak Dev Ji wants. He doesn't want anything else. Just focus his mind on God and do seva. By doing seva, your mind becomes pure. Just to finish off, Guru Nanak Sahib Ji, when they were about to leave this world, because they'd won over the Sikhs, the Hindus, the Musliman, all the religious leaders, they all came to pay their respects because they knew it was the last few moments of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's life. But an argument developed. The Hindus, because they were so overwhelmed with Guruji's teachings, they said, we want to cremate Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. The Muslims, they said, we consider Guru Nanak Dev Ji to be our being. We want to put them in the earth, we want to dig a grave and put the body of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj in that way. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj smiled and called them both to him, close to him. In front of Maharaj there was loads of flowers. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj said, what I want you to do is put the flowers on one side, you keep these flowers, all the Hindu folk. Muslims, you keep these flowers. And after I'm passed away, the flowers that remain the freshest, i.e. the ones that don't die, or lose their colour, or lose their scent, the ones that say the freshest, see that as the best method of getting rid of my body. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj at that time said the last few instructions to all the congregation. He reminded them of their duty of remembering God, of seeing everyone as one, of respecting men, women, children, people of God, of serving the saints, of coming to congregation and remembering God in Kirtan and praising Him at all times. They passed on some instructions to their most ardent servant, who was Bhai Lenaji, who became Guru Angad Dev Ji. And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji asked for a sheet. On the sheet, they lied down, they asked for another, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji took the sheet upon himself and lied down. Some of the flowers that the Hindus have taken away in culture of the Hindu and Islamic rituals in India in the past, there's a saying of full tironiya. When you pay your respects to someone who's passed away, that giving that respect is like you take flowers along and you offer the flowers. Because flowers are considered to be, that's their job, to be given or donated away out of respect. So the Hindus were holding the flowers, there was Muslims holding the flowers, and when Guru Nanak Dev Ji put the sheet upon themselves, after about 20-30 minutes they looked to see if Guru Nanak Dev Ji was there. And when they took the sheet across, they found that there was no Guru Nanak Dev Ji, there was no body, there were just fresh flowers. The same flowers that they were holding, the same flowers that the Hindus were holding, were both fresh. And then they realized that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's instruction had come alive. That Guru Nanak Dev Ji was everyone's. It belonged to everyone. And they all realized that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had come from Gurpurb Vaheguru himself. In the Sikh faith, there have been two Guru Sahibs whose bodies were never found. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founders, and Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, the 10th Guru. Both disappeared to Sachkhand. Both of them did. That's the uniqueness of the Sikh faith. The light of the Gurus is contained in Dhan Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, in whose company we are sitting. Luckily, we've got even a picture or a sarup of Guru Nanak Dev Ji behind. We sometimes imagine that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is actually sitting there. And they are. We should always imagine that. What we've got to do is try to figure out how we can serve Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and how we can take in his blessings over the next few years in your study at this school or in the remaining years. We can perhaps do that. So that was the Jivan of Guru Nanak Dev Ji in very, very summary form over the last few days. In the evening, we're doing Katha of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and through the Hukamnama, so the teachings of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, the 11th Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji Maharaj. If I've said anything to offend anyone, please forgive my mistakes. Let's spend 1 minute just focusing on Guru Nanak Dev. Please try to join in if you can. Tan Guru Nanak, Tan Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak, Tan 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 Guru Nanak.